Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers, and sisters. Welcome back to the VMU Plews. I need to get used to saying this. It's quite a mouthful. The Plews Tyres Racing Le Mans Ultimate season number 4 here at Silverstone. Race number 3 of our 4th season. This is a slight change to the initial published calendar. We would have actually been at Spa for our endurance round, but due to potential clash with LMU's endurance race, we switched to having our standard race at Silverstone this week. We'll be heading to the Ardennes Forest in 2 weeks' time for our endurance round. My name is Chris Buxton. I'll be one of your commentators throughout tonight's festivities. And returning to my side is Mr. Nathan Richards for this very round. Welcome back, Nathan. Glad to have you with me.
Indeed. We got there in the end, didn't we, Chris, with the introduction?
I'm going to get that wrong numerous times.
I'm very glad you do it, because I don't have to memorise it, because it's too much for me. I'll read it, and so I still think, hey, would I even say that? So, no, I'm very lucky that I don't have to read through the introduction. But, of course, great to be back with you, Chris, for VMS as we head to Silverstone. And I think it's going to be a very exciting evening, especially with the hypercars, as we did have that update with the tyre model, which completely changes the meta now, with the Ferrari rumoured to be the quickest car. And there's only there's 2 of them here on track tonight, Yumelo and Isaac Gillison. So we'll see what those 2 can do in the Ferrari. But then, as usual, quite a big variety in the amount of cars that we have in the hypercar class.
Yeah, absolutely true. Now, last time out, we were at Paul Ricard's, which was won by our reserve driver, Isaac Gillison, pretty comprehensively. Let's have a look at our championship standings. This is our GT3 standings. Alexis Herod, for taking the win at Paul Ricard last time, jumps to the top of the table with 43 points. Luke Whitehead, who was looking strong to take the victory last time out on French soil, sadly with late-rate penalties, dropped him down to 9th overall, so he's on 27 in the Mustang. Then it is Alexander Hanna in the Lexus in 3rd, Tommy Lydon in 4th in the Merc. Then it is Mehdi Hamadani in the Lamborghini in 5th, Niclas Hubin in the lead McLaren in 6th position, Valentin Barriere in the Merc in 7th, and alongside Christian Margera also on 12 points. The amount of times I practice these names, I shouldn't be getting them wrong, but there we go. Axel Ramone in 9th position on 10, and rounding out the top 10 is Remy Delorme in the Lexus on 8.
Indeed, there we go, we got there. Yes, I do too many championships now, both on this game, F1, iRacing, ACC. There's too many names to keep up with, so I'm just luckily over time I've managed to just to pronounce names on the fly and hope they're correct. I think most of the time they're probably not, but I don't get told off too often, so I'll just go with the flow and wait till somebody messages me in Discord and says, you've pronounced my name wrong. Most of the time they actually say quite nice things, other times they get quite annoyed and angry at me. But yes, there we go. I'm yet to be told off about pronouncing names wrongs here, as we do get started for qualifying. Oh, that's not an ideal start for those 2, Delorme and one of the Lamborghinis getting together.
Who was that got a bit up close and personal? That was...
What are the 397s?
That was... no, the number on the side, that's 297, which is ironic, because the livery number is 397, which means custom livery. That's Hamadani that has just tangled up with Remy Delorme there. So, oh dear, you're not racing yet, gents. Keep it under control. So, as a reminder for those that may be new to these parts, welcome along if you are. It's a 25-minute in-game session for both of our classes. Our GT3s are out, as you can see, 18 of which have joined us for tonight's festivities. Now, they will have a 10-minute session, and then there is a 5-minute crossover to when the words. Why are my words failing me completely? Now, 10-minute session for our GT3s to do their lap, and then there's a 5-minute crossover for the laps to finish, and then our hypercars to get ready to go. And then they will have their 10-minute session until they finish their laps, and anything left, any time left over for them to finish their laps is done at the end of the session. So both classes have 10 minutes plus whatever they need to finish their final laps. So that is how the qualifying will work.
And you don't have the longest time either, do you? On track either. You've only got 10 minutes, so you've got what? Around 2 minute a lap, I think it is, maybe a little bit longer, especially for the GT3s. It might just be shy of 2 minutes actually. So they've only got like 5 laps maximum to push, maybe 4. So they haven't, got a lot of time to get used to the circuits and get into the conditions. Of course, whatever they might be practicing on in their own practice sessions beforehand, is probably going to be different to what they're doing now in qualifying in terms of temperature and the grip on the track. So they are going to have a lap or two just to get used to the conditions and see what they're playing at, ready for their final runs. At the moment, looking at my screen, Hamadani is purple and purple in the first 2 sectors of 29.301 and 34.638. So far the Lamborghini looking rather quick up at the front.
So we'll see. We do apologise for the technical troubles currently befalling us. We will get things sorted out as quickly as we can. But as Nathan's saying, it is Hamadani at the top of the tree at the moment in the Hurricane. But we will get. Hopefully, we will get the hamsters running. We'll be hitting the right things with hammers and what have you very, very shortly. Just seen Alexander Lay in the Mercedes get a new fastest sector 1 time. Now the representative times are beginning to get onto the board. It's Marius Pedersen in the Lamborghini that has jumped to the top of the table. No, Luke Whitehead has taken that top spot. The first man under 2 minutes in the Mustang. The top of the table, and so there's lots of changing going on. So Luke White has just jumped. Never mind, I can't get the sentences out, and the positions are changing with that regularly. It's Alexis Heron that is returned again to the top of the table. Luke Whitehead in second. So it's Lambo from Ford from Lambo because Mehdi Hamadani in third. Then is Remy Delorme in the lead. Lexus not even half a second behind the top spot. And then, what's that, 50 thousandths of a second over a nearly 2-minute lap. It's Adrian Portal. Again, I can't even get the sentences out before the top 5 change. Alexander Lay has just jumped up into 4th in the Mercedes. So seeing a lot of changes going on. As I say, before I'm even getting the sentences out, that again goes to show how competitive this field is. So hopefully the stream then behaves itself. Currently it is Heron from Whitehead from Hamadani, your top 3.
Indeed, many more cars are just setting their final laps in this session, and of course with Heron leading the championship, being on pole is pretty much the perfect place to be starting here. Of course, Whitehead after that poor, post-race performance, I suppose you could say, in Paul Ricard, ended up finishing 9th there, so he's around at the moment 15 points back, give or take a couple from Heron. So starting first again, can extend this gap by another 8 potentially to Luke Whitehead, depending on where they finish. As Delorme goes up to 3rd in the Lexus, a great lap time there, just 2.5 tenths off from that pole spot, as Marilyn Bessier goes up into P5 as well in the Mustang. So both of the Mustangs up in 2nd and 5th, with one of them down in 18th. So they seem like quite a competitive car here at the moment, and I think most of the laps have been completed, as Alexandre Lay up to P6 as well in the Mercedes, and I think that might be most of the laps done. What can Heron do to try and extend that gap up at the top of the times, up to the line? And he does extend. It's 2 tenths now that separates himself and Luke Whitehead, and that's a gigantic gap to have ahead of 2nd and everybody else below. But as always, the qualifying time's very close. Not even a second separates the top 15. It is, well, 1,000th away, because Niclas Huben is 0.999. So that's 1,000th of a second away from being 1 second back from Alexis Heron. So very close in the timings as usual. And once all these guys finish their laps, as we do see Hannah on the lap at the moment, once they've all finished and got back into the pit lane, and then of course it'll be getting ready to see the hypercars head out on the track.
Yes, indeed. The big guns will be gathering in the pit lane, ready to get. Actually, hear the pit lane siren going off as Alexander Hannah then just pulls over, and he jumps up into 9th position on his final run. But Alexis Heron, Luke Whitehead, Remy Delorme have the top 3 at this point. There we go. So Alexis Heron with the top spot, Luke Whitehead in 2nd, Remy Delorme 3rd. Mehdi Hamadani in 4th. Marin Bessier, good to see him back on form in 5th position. Alexander Lay in 6th. Adrian Portal in 7th, with Patrick Schindler in the lead McLaren in 8th position. Alexander Hannah, we were just watching him finish his last lap of the run. And Axel Ramone rounds out the top 10.
Indeed. So very close as usual. And then looking a little bit further behind, of course, Thomas Lydon, not the best result in P11 there, sitting 4th in the standings, ahead of Malgera in P12. It's Pedersen in 13th, with Manisha in P14 and Niclas Huben a second off, running off the top 15 with Valentin Barriere. Heno in P17 and then Le Monnet in P18. The full grid heading into this one. And I think, yeah, the likes of Lydon there needs to find a lot in the race, because starting P11, when you're 4th in the championship, only 10 points away from 2nd, you've got a little. You give yourself a bit too much work to do, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit so. But again, that's the thing that you say. Yeah, they've got a lot of, giving themselves a lot of work to do. But just look how close each individual car is from each other. You look throughout the entire field, you've got barely more than a couple of tenths anywhere. Look at like 8th down to about 12th. They're all in the same 10th of a second. And that's nearly a 2-minute lap. That is absolutely amazing. Love to see it. But our competitors may have a different matter.
Indeed. As let's have a look at the hypercar standings heading into this one. Of course, it's Fabio Grigoletto who still sits at the top. 2 podiums in 2 races. It was a win in Fuji, and then P3 in Paul Ricard. He leads by quite a decent chunk of points to Sven Gilhood in 2nd place in the Alpine, ahead of Isaac Gillison in 3rd after that great win last time out in Paul Ricard in the Ferrari, ahead of Marco De Bono in P4 and Arda Urchan rounding off that top 5. It's Henrik Gumball in P6. I remember Rain won with him in that Very weird engine issue we had in Fuji. Ahead of here, behind him, sorry, is Brandon Geets in P7. Yone Simončić, I said before the stream, surprising to see him down in 8th place ahead of Matthias Leitao in 9th, and then Leonardo Passoni running off the top 10, Chris.
Yeah, not what you expect to see someone of Yone's caliber, but that just goes to show how good this field is. It is unbelievably close. Again, much like our GT3 field, some amazing names in positions you don't necessarily expect to see them. But that is the nature of the field as it looks. Also, there's been various balances and patches that have gone on even since the season has begun. You mentioned it earlier, the Ferrari potentially the car to be in our hypercar field, of which we have two. Isaac Gillison and Dario Yamalo are in the Ferraris. You've got two cars, one even wiggling at us. That is Paul Puo, that is very clearly eager to get on with it. That's brilliant. I love that. And away we go then. Now our hypercars have got 10 minutes plus whatever time is left over at the end of the session. Michi Hoyer is the Falcon coloured car that is leading them away.
Well, hello to Puo as well.
Yes, I hope I'm getting your name right. Paul is whose name I struggle with the most. Hopefully we're getting that somewhere correct. 18 again cars taking to the track. 36 competitors in this entire field. Brilliant stuff. Silverstone is plenty big enough to have such a big field. Some of the things I've seen commentated on and raced out at Silverstone, something like a 60-car grid. So it can certainly cope with this many. But yeah, this is wonderful to see such a big, varied grid here at VMS.
Definitely. And also, guys, don't expect the best lap times to come out at first, because the tyres are very cold and they take so long to get warmed up. Drivers can very easily overshoot it on the way out to the pit lane and spin, because you've got no grip when heading out of the pits. I've learned the hard way a couple of times when I tried out the new tyre model. So yes, word of warning for those on track: be careful, don't end up spinning when your tyres are so cold. But of course, give it maybe 2 or 3 laps. They should be up to a decent running temperature, and then of course we'll see what they can do and see what sort of lap times they can put out. But definitely keep an eye on the Ferraris over in a different championship. I was commentating on Monday. They were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So the Ferrari at the moment seems like a very, very quick car. So Imola, who I think the championship standings don't do him justice at the moment. He's down in P14 with a no point and a DNF. We all know he's a lot quicker than that.
Well, absolutely so. Dario Yamalo was 5th last season in the car. He was in the Ferrari. I guess it's a bit of a different beast now to what it was then. He was 3 times a podium sitter last season. He knows how to pedal well, the Ferrari, but we will see how he does as the season progresses. What we saw a lot of last season, and from pretty much everybody, was it wasn't always the same names at the top of the tree. It was a very, very mixed set of results throughout the entire season. I'm very much looking forward to seeing much the same again as we continue to watch Michi Hoyer working his way through Maggotts Beckett, now on to Chapel. Still giving his tyres a bit of a warm, and that's not entirely a surprise. Certainly the hypercars need a bit more work to get these tyres up to temperature properly. The GT3s needed a couple of laps at least before we started to seeing the representative times come out. Now, question for you, Mr. Ritchie.
Oh no.
If you, as you're a more seasoned sort of downside better sim racer than I am. I'm not a racer in LMU. I'll put my hands up to that. It's funny you mentioned about spinning on straight out of the garage. I have done the new boys sim racers effort of spinning my wheels that hard coming out of the pit box. I end up in a different pit garage. So not just spinning on the opening lap, I've actually spun in the pit lane and ended up in someone else's garage. I've done that one.
What the whole fences?
Oh yes. So obviously we've just seen our GT3s come out. If you were in the GT3 field, what would be your chariot of choice?
The Mercedes. Now, probably not because of how good it is, because I think it's a decent car, but I don't think it's in the meta. But it's the engine. It is my favourite sounding GT3 by a mile. I love the roar of the Mercedes. So I think in ACC, in this, in a Assetto Corsa, the original, and also in LMU. The Mercedes has always been my choice. What about you, Chris? As we do see a couple of times head up onto the board.
For similar kind of reasons, actually, sound, it would actually be the McLaren for me. I am a sucker for the McLaren. Oh, Brennan Geitz has had a problem here in the Peugeot. Oh, it's just stopped. Oh no, he's trying to warm up his tyres, but has he had an issue? Has he dropped it then? Not sure what happened to Brandon there. So those replays are triggered when a yellow flag happens. So it's not always the kind of fault of the director on, because we can't see what triggered the yellow, only that there is a yellow there. So the yellow was probably triggered because he stopped to do it.
That lap time? He's 7 seconds off.
Yeah, that's my kind of pace. Yeah, I've always said that these guys set a time in the wet that I could only dream of setting in the dry.
I remember that saying from the F1 days, Chris.
Yes, it is a statement I live by. So, yeah, I don't have the time or the talent to put it to be this kind of good. Yeah, there's good. There's great, and then there's this. Yes, very much so. Then he is God amongst men. Michi Hoyer is at the top of the tree at the moment with a 148.8, but as we can see, there are people still trying to work the tyres. The track temperature is only around 23 degrees. It is not warm in sim racing terms, so they are having to work their tyres very hard. Being that it is a long lap at Silverstone, they come a point where they just have to kind of get on with it. Now we're starting to see a little bit more of a representative time of 45 now on the board. That will continue to come down as Jimmy Menard is lighting up the sector time of the third. Yeah, there we go. You're now seeing the times are 43.5. That's a bit more like it. Isaac Gillison in the Ferrari getting more representative times on the board. Ira Erchan sits in second in the Toyota. Dario Yamano in the second, and the Ferraris sit in third at the moment. Now people are getting there. Get out and they're getting on with it. There is our championship leader and current champion, double champion indeed, Fabio Grigoletto, currently sits in fifth.
Indeed, and just look at the gap there between the top two and everybody else. It's about 7-10 between Erchan and Yamolo. Then in third place, as we do see there, Gates up into P3, about half a second off in that Peugeot. So yeah, some big gaps at the moment, but of course that's because some cars take a little bit longer to warm up their tyres. Maybe it's also down to the preference of the drivers. Maybe they just want to wait for a bit more of an optimal temperature before they go out and push. Some might do it a little bit earlier and just to get a decent time on the board. But of course, Gillison, after that win in Paul Ricciardo's back on top honours here in qualifying by 44 thousandths, as we do see Matthias Barzenk up into P7 in that Cadillac, just behind Grigoletto and Matthias Leitao. And then looking a little bit further down, we have Paul Puo running off the top 10 with Michi Moya up into the top 9. Hasn't been Michi's best season so far, with both races finishing outside the top 10, so maybe tonight could be his night in that Alpine.
We will have to see. We don't know the full extent of how the new tyre model, how balance of power is going to affect this field. We never know until we see it, and until they take to the field. But Paul Puo has jumped to the top of the tree yet again, before I even get the words out. He was top of the tree, and then four drivers now have just superseded him. But all within a couple of tenths. Now 5, now 6. Oh dear, Jimmy Menard has dropped it. Coming through farm, so gets the number 22 car back underway. Peugeot is proving a bit of a handful. It is Dario Yamalo that currently has the top honours now, a 42.5. Oh, now that is quite a gap. That's the biggest gap we've seen between two cars. Nearly 7/10 between himself, and never mind, that's has now changed to 14,000 to Bradley Geist, the Peugeot. It may be a bit of a slippery beast in the hands of some, but Brandon Gold, wow, stunning effort there to get the Peugeot out in the second by a mere whisker under Dario Yamalo's time.
Indeed, looking quite quick is both of the Peugeot actually, because we've got Johannes Priest as well up into the top 5, around 7/10 off the back of Yamalo. So a good time from them, as we do see Matthias Barzenk up into third, the quickest of all the Cadillacs on track at the moment. So expecting a big improvement from Fabio Grigoletto, down in P11 at the moment. Hasn't yet got, I'd say it hasn't got a representative time, but he's a second off. So I'd imagine that he's just not improved on the big improvements that they had with the tyres being nice and warm. As it says here, Johannes Priest is purple and green in the first 2 sectors, so this could be a nice lap from the Peugeot. So we'll see what Priest can do through the final couple of corners. Of course, it's 50 seconds left. You're looking at starting 1 lap, and that is it, really, as we do see Grigoletto up to P7, Leto up to 3rd, Erchan up to 3rd, and 1 over to the top 5. Johannes Priest goes quickest by 2.5 tenths of a second in the Peugeot, as Isaac Gillison back up into the top 3.
Goodness me, that is rapid fire changing of those top spots. Yeah, Johannes Priest in the Peugeot, top of the tree. Dario Yamalo ahead of Isaac Gillison now for 2nd or 3rd. Brandon Guys pushed down the 4th. Arne Ercan up in the 5th. Sven Gilhut in 6th. Leonardo Pisoni, who I think is yet to get any points on the board, is Pisoni. Oh, beg your pardon, he's got 7th. He's in 10th position. He's the top. Never mind. He's in 7th now. Again, not even just shy of the 2nd of that top spot is Pisoni, and Mateus Leo in 8th. Marco Bueno in 9th. Mateus Barzang rounds out the top 10 at present, but every lap there is improvements being found, generally speaking, across the world. Fabio Grigoletto, not expected to see our champion outside of the top 10.
No, definitely not. But he was decent in the first 2 sectors. It says orange, but I think that's based off the best time in the session. So Grigoletto through the first 2 sectors is only, I think, like half a tenth off. Whereas Yamolo there, he's pretty much 3 thousandths off overall. He's 80 thousandths down in sector 1 and 77 thousandths up in sector 2. So we'll see what he can do if he can find the pole position. But Grigoletto, if he can find a 10 in that final sector, he could be jumping onto that pole position and taking down Johannes Priest, who stormed up to the top very unexpectedly, up to the line now. For Grigoletto, where can he go? Up to the line. And I think he stay where he's in P11. Not good at all for Fabio Grigoletto whatsoever. As Imola also not improving enough to go ahead onto that pole position. Does get within 2 tenths of Johannes Priest, but nothing to be too happy about. But here is Jurnej Simoncic looking fire through the first couple of sectors up to the line for Jurnej Simoncic, and he goes up to P11 and displaces Grigoletto by a singular place, and that is not good for him at all. Grigoletto, championship leader, P12.
Jimmy Menard, purple 1, purple 2. Can he round up? He didn't quite get the trifecta there, but slots into 6th position. Does Jimmy Menard in the Peugeot? The Peugeot looking particularly strong, it seems, against the rest of the field. That's 7, just shy of 8 tenths from the top spot. So there it is. Johannes Priest at the top of the tree. Dario Yamalo joins him on the front row. Isaac Gillison and Brandon Geis, row 2. Arda Erchan, Jimmy Menard on row 3. Sven Gilhut and Matthias Letal for row 4. Marco De Bono and Martis Barzang on row 5. That's rounds out our top 10. Stunning effort there from our field. Leonardo Pisoni and Jurnej Simoncic on row 6. Fabio Grigoletto and Marco Cantor on row 7. Rafael Bila and Paul Puo, row 8. Michi Hoyer and Moritz Ulrich on row 9. And that is all of our I was going to say Alexis Heron on row 10. Well, technically, yes, but that's the lead of our GT3s. Wow, goodness me. It had to be rapid fire because the lap is so long. But 1.5 seconds separates the entire of both fields. That's 1.5 seconds separates both grids.
I expected the Ferrari to be quickest, and I mean, they are 2nd and 3rd, so they are not far away from being the quickest. But of course, Johannes Priest, P9 and P9 in the first opening races, and then storms up to the top with a cracking 42.0 in the Peugeot. And you can see the beautiful new broadcast control system that we have set up here for VMS, and we can see the starting grid as we go all the way through. We'll have a look in a moment at the GT3 class. Of course, we've talked through who's where in the hypercar category, but of course there we can see on our screen Grigoletto 13th place, a difficult start for him, and then our man Paul Puo, who we finally got his name correct, down in 16th place. And then of course it's going to be Ulrich who rounds off the full grid. Looking at the GT3s, it's Harrington on pole ahead of Whitehead in 2nd place. That's our top 2 in the championship. And we can see 3rd and 4th, it's Delorme and Hamadani, Lexus and Lamborghini. And as we say that, we get to our top 5 with Bessier, and it seems we might be getting ready to get started, Chris.
Indeed. Portal and Schindler in the Lamborghini and McLaren, respectively. That'll be row 13. Then Hannah and Ramone, Lexus and McLaren on row 14. Leiden and Margera on row 15. As Pedersen, who set the early pace in GT3s alongside Manisha, rounds out row 16. Then Huben and Barriere in the McLaren and Merc, row 17. Then Hanno and Lemoyne on row 18 rounds out our entire field. Right then. Good to see so many of you in chat joining in with us. Again, we do apologize for the early technical difficulties, but they seem to have gone. The replacement hamsters are doing their job perfectly well. Let it be known who you are here to support. We see Go Renova. We see that in chat. I saw Let's Go Portal and Hamadani. I saw that earlier on. So let it be known who you're here to support, and let us see how the field then is going to take to Northamptonshire's finest. It is one of my favourite tracks. Yes, a bit of favouritism because I am a Brit. I do love Silverstone. I have done for many years. Commentated on many different races at Silverstone. Interesting mixture of tyre strategies this time in our hypercar field. All of the GT3s go for medium tyres. That is not a surprise, but a curious mixture of hard, medium, and mixed through the field.
Indeed, yes. A nice mixture, and I suppose that could make for a very interesting race, both at the start of the stint and at the end of the stints. Of course, up in the top 13, the only driver to go for a full hard set is Niclas. Then we've got Menard with a mixture of hard and medium, and the same for Matthias Leitao. And then we have Cancer and Bieler down in 14th and 15th, also on that hard compound. So we'll see what those guys can do, and then everybody else pretty much in the top 15 have gone for a medium tyre. And it's not long before we get going, Chris, and you did this to me last time, I believe, and you maybe go off the front and give a winner. So I'm going to say question to you: who's going to win this race?
No, yeah, I'd forgotten I did that, actually. It's difficult to look away from the Ferraris. I wonder what Isaac Gillison has in mind. He started on the hard tyres, doesn't mean he's sticking with them. I'm always one that I do like an outside bet. So we've seen some wonderful performances from some lesser familiar names to us here. Like Brandon Guides, for instance, as his maiden season with us. Jimmy Menard, good to see him back on form. The sensible money does point towards Gillison or Yamano in the Ferraris. I'm going to nominate Brandon Guides just to kind of throw a bit of an outside bet in there in the second version. No disrespect to anybody, but that's why I'm going to go for this team.
Here we go, it's good, ready to go green flag racing here in Silverstone, and we do go green flag racing. It's Priest who starts at the front as they head their way through the cops at turn number 1, and everybody so far making it through nicely. At least all the hypercars do. I'm sure we'll see in a moment if all the GT3s make it through. As now we can see Dario Molo going for the move for the lead and makes a move for the lead. Oh no! He's off the track, and Maggots back it. And Imolo from second on the but he's off the circuit.
Oh, he was wrong-footed going through Maggots for the first time in anger. He's just about, and then he catches Luke Whitehead, who's gone to the top of the GT3 field. Only just managed to recover in time, but a big spin has been way off the back of Johannes Price and Brandon Gates. At the top of the tree, let's have a look at it again, and there, just that tiny snap of oversteer, but he's then overcorrected and spun him off. Almost, his head towards the wall. Just managed to bleed off all the momentum before he gets there. But Dario Yamalo with it all to do.
And Grigoletto from 13th up to 8th. Now that's a start and a half when, for our championship leader. But of course, he needs to be making those starts in races where he's a little bit further down the field. But Luke Whitehead there got off very lucky with what happened there with Yamalo heading out Chapel Corner. Could have easily speeding off into a barrier. Of course, he leads the GT3 class ahead of Alexis Herrett. As off the track, that will be Buo. Buo is off down at the exit of the loop, and he'll rejoin from down at the bottom. And here's a replay of what happened here with Paul Buo. We make our way towards entry, and the loop, is it contact? It is a bit of a weak contact, isn't it? It's on the loop of each other.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate. So he was obviously then ended up facing the wrong way. He had to kind of get off the track as quick as he could. But yeah, with all to do, not quite sure which car he bounced off of. I didn't quite see who he was. Because he had contact with. We'll see how he passes through the field. So now it is placing from Gillison, your top rear. We are looking at Jens Simičić. Behind is chasing the Aston Martin of Mattis Latau, but look at the train. Obviously, we're not expecting the field to dissipate particularly quickly just yet, but that Aston Martin is really glued. So that's when Dario Yamalo now he's worked his way up to 13th in the hypercar field as is Dario Yamalo. So he's had a good kind of recovery run. But Mattis Latau is right under the wing of Mateusz Bartek to try and make his way up through the top 10. Then Simičić just bides his time in the which one is he in? The Cadillac. So he's got to bide his time to try and make his way through the field. There is the Aston Martin we were just talking about. So that is the that is Simičić, beg your pardon. So yeah, I'm getting my cars muddled up. I knew I would eventually.
Oh, is this
GT3?
Oh, that was close. I think DeLong's under pressure here from the Mustang of Bessier, who gets the move completed to Cox corner, and around the outside is Hamadani looking to make the move in towards, not Cox, it's in towards Abbey and Farm. I'm getting the parts of the track mixed up, never mind. Cars mixed up as they make their way through, and also Alexandre Lay goes through in round, goes to Lorm after a couple of positions lost. It's ended up off into the grass and rejoining down in 15th place.
I think we've had more spins in these first couple of laps than we had all race long last time out. Goodness me. Perhaps so. So you get very, very close to the Lamborghini coming through Farm. So that is unbelievably close. Then just gets the inside line of the Oplite Mercedes, and then just the merest tap. That was Alexandre Lay. And it was such a tiny tap as well that unsettled the car.
Very similar to what we saw with Bubo, just in a different corner. Slightly different that from side to side, and unfortunately off into the grass on that occasion, as he is about for fifth in the hypercar category. It's under pressure here from Jimmy Menard, who is looking to make the send in towards Vale and Club as they make their way through. Of course, no move on the cards that time around, and Dario Iamolo back into 13th has caught up to Pisoni, who's in that BMW, so we'll see what he can do in terms of making some early moves. We expect him to be going through quite quickly just because of that raw pace that we saw from the Ferrari driver earlier on in qualifying, as still with Menard here, also under pressure from Marco De Buono, so we'll be keen to keep an eye on what happens here between this battle for 5th, 6th and 7th, as Iamolo's got the move going on. Pisoni moves up into P12. And yes, we'll just see what he can do from there. As we do see Julien Hennault drop down to P17 as well in the LMGT3 class. And one quick thing as well to note, Chris, look at the gap between Whitehead and Heron. It's now over 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, he's getting the horses galloping in the American mark. Is Luke Whitehead. I think he was somewhat vocal, shall we say, about events that denied him the win last time around. I think it was a polite way of putting it.
I had a little bit of chat, and I thought, I know exactly what part he was on about, Chris, when he said someone wasn't happy.
Yes. But yeah, very much a statement of intent there from Luke Whitehead in the Mustang. Yeah, really is galloping away as we continue to watch this wonderful battle. Or we were with Jimmy Menard as he was chasing Sven Kielhead. So we've got, that's Yamolo. What has happened with the Ferrari? Big move on Pisoni. Nice move down at the farm, and yeah, as he considering that he was mixing it in with the GT3s in the first lap, he's now very much mixing it with the hypercars as Jens Simičić defends the inside line, coming in Vale. Oh, a bit of a tap between the two. Well recovered, but Dario Yamalo means business and somewhat barges his way past the Aston and up into 11th place. Then comes Yamalo.
Well, attempting the through goes Hamilton there was Dario in towards the final corner. Basically did it just with 2 cars instead of 3. Makes his way through, then up into 11th now, only 1.5 seconds away from Matthijs Leijten in 10th. as here is Simonchik under pressure from Pisoni as they head their way out of the loop and down towards Brooklands corner. Let's see what type of move we can get here then. The Wellington straights for Leonardo Pisoni. It's going to be an inside manoeuvre on Simonchik. It's going to be close all the way through Brooklands, then back to the right at Lovefield. You've got to make sure you don't tip the car too much with the balance as you head left, right, and then it's through Woodcut and down towards Cops corner. And has Pisoni got the run? I think he might go side by side. No, he's had to back off there, so no move on the cards for Pisoni through into Cops corner. But you'd imagine really he's going to get that move done sooner or later, because they will just keep losing more and more time to those ahead. And here is a battle for the lead, Chris.
There's a Peugeot parade up front. Johannes Price leads the Brandon guys at the moment, and they've broken away from Isaac Gillison by nearly 3 seconds. Bear in mind, though, that Isaac Gillison is on the harder tyres, whereas most opted for the mediums. So that is going to play a part in the outcome of this race. So you can say Isaac Gillison's doing pretty well to be hanging on to his early, still in podium contention this early on in the race. But we will watch as the race continues to see how things pan out. Thank you very much for your donation there, Taylor Sphinx. It is very, very generous of you indeed. Much appreciated for that. So our Peugeots then continuing to stretch their legs. You just see the background of the shot there. There's Isaac Gillison, Lada Erchan in the Falcon Toyota, doing what he can to stay in contention of the rest. Then it's Sven Gielhood that has got what must feel like the pressure of the entire world on his shoulders in the Alpine, with Jimmy Menard, who is having a much more comfortable run here in the Peugeot than we've seen in the season thus far from Jimmy. He really struggled last season as with some inconsistent results to Jimmy Menard, but he's really back on form. You see Jimmy Menard's gone for a mixed tyre, that hard and medium mixture, which a couple of cars have gone for. We'll see if it pays off for him.
Indeed, we'll have to wait to see. But some information as well. I don't know if you mentioned it, Chris, but Marco Cantor has retired as well in the hypercar category in the Porsche Penske Motorsport car. He's out and will not continue in this one, as we have a pan to the pit lane of the beautiful wall where I believe Marco Cantor's car is, as he heads into Snow corner. That's a big snap on the rear end. And that's a slight tap into the barriers, but I think he thought, you know what, I'm calling it quits there. There's no point carrying on, because you've got so much work to do if you want to try and just work your way back to the field from that position he would have been in. As it's grown, I think there might have been a bigger issue, because he goes back into the barrier.
Well, yeah, he could have either decided there's no point me just I may as well just park it here. So yeah, it may well be right. That could be frustration, but it did look like he had a potential technical issue there. So our first retirement. Not even 10 minutes in, Marco Cantor has parked the Porsche. Oh, hello. That's lively. That's Dario Yamalo is the Ferrari on the right. He's trying to get his way, and does get his way past Tesla Tau in the Cadillac to get himself into, or further into, the top 10. There's Dario Yamalo. He's been on an absolute charge since he had that spin.
Barzing's gone off. I did see someone off at the loop, and it's Barzing that's gone off, gone around from the top. I think it was P7. Now down into 17th behind Paul Puo. What a shame there for Matthias Barzing. Let's see what happens here. Through in towards the first couple of corners. This is Yamullo. So was it contact between the two? Is the question. Into turn 3. Ability to send by Yamullo. A bit of contact there. What happens in towards turn 4? Oh, I think, yeah, again,
and there it is.
Slight contact every time.
It is the nearest contacts we're seeing as well. So that was where Barzing initially tripped over Dario Yamalo, and then really tangles up. Both spun. That was that's Tau that swapped round that he spun with. So both of them having a big spin, able to continue, but. Yes, it's incredible the amount of spins we're seeing thus far. We're only, just over 10 minutes in.
Indeed, and look at the gap now between Knight and Gillison. It's 2.5 seconds as here's the battle for fifth. There's Jimmy Menard, goes up the inside in towards Vale. So they make their way through. No move on this occasion, but Sven Gielhood here doing a great defensive duty of keeping Jimmy Menard behind as they head back down towards Abbey and Farm. Of course, you're not really going to make much of a move here. It's more down towards Village if you're going to make any move. And we can see the background there. I'm sure that was a Lamborghini. So we are catching the rear of the GT3 train now. As you see, Chris, in the past, as soon as they catch the GT3s, all hell breaks loose.
That they did. Of course, the GT3, well, for the most part, the GT3 field is still fairly condensed, although we have had quite a few spins early on. That is indeed the Lamborghini you can see of Julian Hanno. It's struggling a bit here in Silverstone, and is pressing on nonetheless. So this is where the GT3s just need to stay predictable either side of the other Lamborghini. There goes our Peugeot pair leading the way. So the GT3s, as is always the case in multi-class racing, they've got to stay consistent, they've got to stay predictable. The faster cars have the downforce and the power to work their own way past the GT3s. They don't want the slower class to be jumping out of the way and potentially into their path. So, it's the offline McLaren almost got a face full of Peugeot there. So hypercars then working their way through the field. You see Isaac Gillison there is doing the same thing, slaloming his way through the field. As that's caught Brandon Geitz out very slightly there. No one did anything wrong. That's just the nature of multi-class racing. But Brandon Geitz just had to get out of the throttle a little bit more than Johannes Price did in the sister Peugeot. But either way, it's still Price from Geitz and from Gillison the top hypercar 3. And it is Whitehead now. Bessier is up into second. We haven't had much of a chance to have a look at our GT3 contingent.
Well,
and there is
one, because we did see Bessier make the move when we saw Geets and Price go through, but I'll let you off on that one because you was focusing on that battle.
True. Yeah, I'll take that. So Marin Bessier up into second place with Alexis Heron now down into third. Oh, God, Abby's getting Farmer is getting very, very busy. There's Dario Yemelo that is continuing his charge. He is on the back of his countryman Fabio Rigoletto. So again, those two have crossed swords numerous times. There is champion working his way through the field, but Gary Yamalo somewhat showing the newfound performance in the Ferrari, as we see Mogera being passed by Arsene Manisha, the Corvette, getting himself inside the top 10 of our GT3s.
Indeed, a nice move there from Manisha. Of course, further back we've got Rigoletto, I think, trying to make his way through, or at least one of the hypercars. Two of them follow each other through, and that will be Bruno and Rigoletto, and then behind is Yamolo as well, looking to make their way through into Cop Corner. And you don't know who to watch here because everybody's looking to make moves and trying to fight through an each other. As here's Jurgen Simonchich on the back of Matthias Leitao as they headed towards Maggots and Beckett here, and then further back behind we saw the battle, I believe that's for second, third and fourth and fifth in the GT3 category. So lots to keep an eye on here on circuits at Silverstone, as Simonchich now has got a decent run down towards Stowe Corner, but of course has got one of the Lamborghinis ahead. That will be P3, so that'll be Alexis Heron. Next ahead will be Marin Bessier, that they've got to get past him. I'm sure we'll just let them through. There's no point costing time and potentially damaging your race doing that, as both go through and they can continue on up the road. Of course, they've got to get past Whitehead and then they can continue having their battle. Of course, Whitehead so far has been driving absolutely brilliantly, with a 4-second gap ahead of Marin Bessier in second place and Alexis Heron in third, and with the championship standings being 16 points in Heron's favour, this would be a great result, wouldn't it, for Luke Whitehead to bring that gap down by 10 points to just 6 heading into round 4.
Absolutely so. As Luke Whitehead, minding his own business, doing the right thing, nearly had Gary Simonchich join him in his boot. Our Sol Aston in the field. Now, after this round, the drivers will have the option to change cars. So I feel we may see a lot of changes, but there will be some that will stick with their familiar machinery as we come back to the battle for 5th position between Sven Gilhert and Jimmy Menard. There will be some that will hedge their bet to stick with the machinery that they know, because again, before we know, we may have another patch, another balance, another change that may rearrange the pecking order throughout the season. Doesn't tend to happen more than once in a current season, but it's not impossible. So, we will have to see. I imagine the Ferrari is going to become a little bit more popular than it was at the beginning of the season, judging certainly by Dario Yemelo's performance as we have a look at Jimmy Menard trying to get the inside line of Stowe. He's got the overlap. He's going to be forced to the outside line at the beginning part of Vale. But is he going to be able to keep the overlap? He is, so he's going to have the inside line for Club. Can he get that? Can he wrestle that 5th position from Sven Gillard? Sven's kept his foot in it. The Falcon Alpine has hung on to that 5th position. And he's managed to defend it very, very well driven from Sven Gillard.
That's some great defensive driving. I mean, at least 3 times there in 20 seconds. You would have thought Jimmy Menard's got the move done, but Sven Gillard with some great defending keeps that Peugeot behind and keeps the Alpine in the top 5 as behind. It's Grigoletto and Dario Iamolo. I mean, normally you'd see these two fighting up at the top, not for 8th and 9th. It's not going too well for Grigoletto in that Cadillac whatsoever, and I'd say it's going well for Iamolo now just because he's managed to work his way back up, but of course he was the one who went in the lead on lap 1. Made a mistake with, I presume, cold tyres, and then ended up being shot off into the abyss. He dropped down to 15th. He's now back up into 9th, but not that far away from jumping back up into 8th. And then looking at the times ahead, brilliant so far by the Peugeots, who sit P1 and P2, 4 seconds ahead of Gillison, another 4 seconds ahead of Arda Erchan, and then 4.5 seconds ahead of Sven Gillard. So you'd imagine really here, if you're the two Peugeots, Precinct guys, you've got to be getting a podium here at minimum, I think, realistically.
We will have to see, as all it takes is one mistake, and we've seen quite a few of those already. It doesn't even have to be your mistake that you are caught up in for your whole race to undo itself. Plenty of time to go, just over an hour and a minute, an hour and a minute remaining. So plenty of time for things to unfold as we continue to watch Jimmy Menard and Sven Gillard dueling for 5th position. All the while, Marco Domino is closing in on them in the BMW. There he is. And then right behind them is Fabio Grigoletto and Dario Iamolo, the Italians, all in that club. So that's a duel for 5th position is going to get very much more crowded within the next few laps. There you can see Marco Domino already in contention. There's Iamolo and Grigoletto side by side, as they have been numerous times in the past. It's Ferrari versus Cadillac. Dario Iamolo's been on an absolute charge. How has he got anything left in those tyres? Well, he has got plenty enough left around the outside line of the loop, but Grigoletto's not giving up on that one into Brooklands and defends the position. So Fabio Grigoletto, whoops, a bit of a wobble there from Iamolo. Has he pushed those tyres too hard, too quick? He's made a great recovery drive, but this could well stunt his progress through the field. Brilliant defensive driving from our champion.
Definitely, and you can see those, catching up to the back of Domino, Menard and Gillard for P5. So if it carries on, up ahead with the battles, there's definitely a chance we could see the battle go from 5th down to 9th place. But of course, that also could depend on how quickly Dario Iamolo gets the move done on Fabio Grigoletto. I would say make their way through and towards Mackett and Beckett's, and then Chapel on the exit, that slight left-hander. And then, of course, it's a decent run down towards Stowe corner as we switch to Jimmy Menard again up the inside into Stowe to get ahead of Sven Gillard. It's side by side. Oh! Gillard trending. So is Jimmy Menard 5th and 6th around contact of Stowe. They both go off the circuit, and that promotes Domino into 5th, Grigoletto into 6th place, and Dario Iamolo up into P7.
Well, let's see it again. Now, did Sven hit the wall? So Jimmy goes to the inside line and not enough room into Stowe. Did the Alpine bounce off the wall? No, he did manage to keep himself out of it, but no, you never want to see it. You never want to see a duel end like that. Let's see again. Jimmy Menard wasn't quite as deep into. See, Jimmy Menard, he didn't get the apex right and ended up just bouncing off the side of Sven. But Jimmy Menard then returns into, I think it's 10th position, and Sven then gets back going again as the replay sorts itself out. When the replay triggers, it looks at the pit lane. That's why that happens. It's just the replay then has to figure itself out, and we return to live then as Brendan Geitz has closed in on Johannes Priest. So 6.5 tenths separate our leading Peugeots. 5 seconds back now to Isaac Gillison. So we return to the battle of our GT3s. Big clump of our GT3s still together here. It's Adrian Portal and Christian Malgera, 10th and 11th in the Lambo and McLaren, respectively.
Indeed. Battle for the final points here in the Top 10 for the GT3 class. It's Lamborghini versus McLaren as they make their way down towards Village Corner. Of course, they've got a few cars behind them who are all in that train for 12th and 13th and 14th. As we do see there, Malgera back up the outside of Porte. He's going to have to go for the up and under and towards the loop at Aintree, but he's not quite close enough there. We'll have to get it down towards Brooklands Corner, pushing the Lamborghini of Porto out of the loop and down the Wellington Straight. Let's see, is there a move on the cards for the McLaren up the inside? It's going to be side by side all the way through in towards Brooklands. Move complete for Malgera, unless there's something that Porto can do on the exit of Luffield. But I think that is that McLaren has covered that one off. So it's McLaren now up into the top 10. 3 of them now up into the top 10, and then further behind the battle for 12th, 13th and 14th with Pedersen, Hubert and Alexander Hanna. And then also Valentin Barrios thought he joined in the battle, as well as the car in 16th, to being Remy Delorme, who of course was up in the top 3 and went off in the opening parts of the race. And also looking up at the front as well, the GT3 class, since Bessier got the move done, he's now brought that gap up to 3 seconds over Alexis Heron, who's now 7 seconds off the lead. So I think he knows maybe the win isn't on today like it was last time out, but certainly a podium is within a chance.
So we saw Malgera get the inside line on Pedro Portal, and this, we have a replay here of the McLaren side by side again with the Lamborghini, and it is the Frenchman getting back ahead of the Italian, back up into that point play position. And right behind them is this great big queue of cars that is being led by Maris Pedersen, and it's you've got this train of 5 cars, 4 different manufacturers. Oh, that's a problem for the Lexus. Big problem. Is that Delorme? Is that Remy Delorme?
Yeah, it is Remy Delorme.
Oh no! So
Ercan, yellow flag. What's happened to him?
What happened to?
Is it?
Has it? Well, some kind of technical issue certainly happened for Remy Delorme. So, and there his car just continues to rotate and then bounces off the pit wall. So, whether it was some kind of game crash or freeze or technical issues, steering wheel, whatever it was, just his car continued to rotate right as they were coming onto the start-finish straight. So we have our first GT3 retirement. Remy Delorme is out.
I'd imagine then I think maybe Ercan was heading through past along, because there was a few of the hypercars that went through, because he was in that area, it flashed up as yellow, because it said yellow, and he went, and his name went a little bit, there was a bit more disparity in the colour, so I thought, oh, maybe he's had an issue, but no, I guess not. He's continued on in 4th. So yes, a slight bit of a scare there for a moment as we do see our top 2 of the hypercar class now making their way through the GT3s. Oh, this could end badly as they make their way through 1, 2. There's a 3rd one to get through as well. That's going to be Malgera, I think so, in that McLaren. So they head out of Chapel and they've dispatched all of the GT3s that they needed to in that instance. And then, of course, because of that, that's allowed the gap to be brought down to Isaac Gillison. It's now 3.9 seconds. It was up at 5 earlier on. And then looking down as well, there's a battle for P8. So that's Jimmy Menard and Matej Slaitau, who both continue on. I'd imagine with what happened there with Menard, there could be a possible steward report looming around for him now as he went up the inside, understeered slightly into Sven Gilhood, who I think has dropped down to P11 outside the points after being P5, as here is Vila and Huward having a battle down towards the Vale chicane. Let's see if there's any move on the cards.
Well, side by side, going into Vale, now out through Club. Paul Puro has managed to wrestle away 15 from Rafael Bila. Paul Puro with that early trouble in the Cadillac has dropped him right down. The Porsche seems to be very unfavoured now with the balance of power in the LMU show the age hypercar contingent. We now look at Niclas. Well, we look at this particular group, and particularly on Niclas Hubin in the McLaren, fending off the advances of Alexander Hanna in the Lexus with that is Marco de Borgo just working his way on the outside line of Luffield. Ooh, again, this is a bit of a nightmare really for the hypercars. They want just an easy run through the back markers, but when you've got battling back markers, that's a problem, and in very twisty circumstances as well, that is a big headache for our hypercars. So replay now of Isaac Gillison. What has happened here with him and Hamidani in the Lamborghini? So Isaac Gillison's had to just bide his time, I think, a little bit, coming through Woodcote and Cox. I think he may well just lost a little bit of time there. Yeah, that gap has gone back out to about 5.5 seconds. But that's the thing, traffic giveth and traffic taketh away. As we now look at, or briefly, oh, that's the lead. That's Price and Geitz that are arguing for the lead now. They're right on top of each other. Well, they need to be working together. I mean, getting any pair of cars to work together is always a difficult thing, I grant you. But, yeah, they are both of the same. They're both representing Flyby Esports, so they need to be working together. Could well be that's why Brandon didn't push too hard to try and get that position. So they're trying to work together, but you know, sometimes you just, yeah, if the person you're chasing makes a bit of a mistake, and right there, look. So that's
weird move.
Is that? Oh, so that's Geitz probably making the move in either in error or because Johannes was concentrating on the Mustang, and then they swap back around again, so Price continues to lead the way.
I think that was a little bit too late on the brakes for Geitz there, because I don't know why else he would have ended up doing that. He looked very late on the brakes and making a harsh move as here is about for 13th in GC3, so got a few of the hypercars going past them as Pedersen keeping ahead of Alexander Hanna as they head in towards the field. Any move on the cards here? No, they still stay where they are. Of course, ahead of them is Niclas Huber in P12, so we'll keep an eye on him, see what happens there. But of course, their gap now up to Malgera is 2.1 seconds, so they've got a lot of time to gain to get back within any chance of fighting for a top 10 place in this race. We do have 15 minutes to go in this one as we make our way through out of Cop Corner and down towards Maggots and Beckett's as one of the Cadillacs looking to try and make their way through, chopping and charging through. And I think he's going to have to stay behind just for now and then get the move done on the exit of Beckett's in towards Chapel Corner. Still behind and now goes through, finally does the hypercar. Looking at the gap ahead though, it's 4 seconds now between Geitz and Gillison. It's another 5 seconds back to Urchan and another 5 back to De Buono. Looking at sorts of energy as well, you're looking at, I think, around 50%. I think some of them are just below 49% now. So you're looking at definitely a pit stop. When the pit stop comes around is the question. And of course, I'd imagine somebody in the chat, please let me and Chris know if they'll be changing tyres. I'd imagine those on the hards can carry on. But if you're on a medium tyre, do you have to make a tyre change?
Good question, and we will see what the chat doth answer. Remy Delorme HUD crash on the LMU, screen freeze for 5 seconds. That is such a shame. It's such a, yeah, sorry to see that, Remy, but we thank you for your presence in chat nonetheless, and we appreciate the update on that one as we look at Ramone and Manisha still arguing for their own bit of Northamptonshire real estate. The McLaren still keeping the Corvette at bay now with the Falcon McLaren right ahead of them, Patrick Schindler. So a three-way argument for 7th is then in full swing. Not far ahead of them is Thomas Leiden in the upright Mercedes. There he is. That's not the Merc. Yes, it is. It's just not the upright one. I beg your pardon. Forgetting who. There's so many teams and so many changes since last season. I don't always remember who drives for which team. It is a Merc, but leads that particular parade. There he is, Thomas Leiden. And we've seen for several seasons here in Platt. That's an upright car. It's the upright McLaren of. Yeah. So that particular group is arguing for 7th position at the moment. So everybody is settling into their rhythm now.
And also, I've noticed as well, Alexander Hanna is in the pit lane. Whether that's for damage or if it's just for a pit stop here, Alexander Hanna is in. Of course, we did lose Remy Delorme, as we saw, and that's not his Lexus. That's the Lexus of Hanna, who's now exiting the pit lane. So we'll keep an eye here and see what Hanna will be able to do. It still says the energy is at 40%, but I imagine it will update once we go all the way around.
Yes, it will update when they cross over the line, so that will come good again. So that is, they may change the left side if they're on all mediums. It is open choice. Some may risk a no tyre check. Interesting.
Ooh.
So we will see who decides to roll the dice post pit stop as we look at this great battle here. So for 7th position with several cars involved in this one, riding on board with I think that's Ramone. I think we are riding on board with that. The Corvette is behind us. So we are. Oh, it is Medici. I beg your pardon. It is the Corvette we are riding on board with. So we're staring at the back of the Off-White McLaren of Ramone, of Axel Ramone, who in turn is chasing the Falcon McLaren of Patrick Schindler. Then you can just see the Mercedes of Tomasz Leiden a little bit further up the road. Not too far ahead of him is Mehdi Hamadani in the Lamborghini. Oh,
yes, definitely.
That's Menard we are riding on board with, the number 22, as he continues to, well, he's now chasing Fabio Grigoletto. So it is Cadillac versus Peugeot here. And right behind Jimmy Menard is Tesla Tau. See if he's able to close in his Cadillac. That's the Peugeot side, but that's the flyby Peugeot side by side again. Now Brandon has decided, they have probably decided between themselves that Brandon is going to take over the lead. It does look, in fairness, it did look like Brandon had the pace to do it. As Artem Manisha has just gone ahead of Axel Ramone for 8th position in the GT3s. So this is how it took place on the exit of the loop. Yeah, it's just Brandon Geitz had the slipstream, gets side by side, gets the inside line to Brooklands. Well, it doesn't even need the break-ins over Brooklands. So gets the maneuver done, and Johannes Price then slots into 2nd position. So still the flyby Peugeots leading the way. I'd
imagine though, because they have very similar pace, and has Gillison gone round, or is that just glitching again? I think there's been a mistake. There has. Isaac Gillison has gone off, down to 4th place, rejoins ahead of Deborah, but a big mistake from the Ferrari, who was dominant last time out in Paul Ricard, has gone off the track here at Magnussen Beckett. Let's see what happened as they head their way through. It's pretty much the exact same corner at the moment where we saw Dario Yamalo go off earlier on. And to be fair, you know what? He's got that. He's in the barriers.
A much worse incident. Yeah, same place, same incident, but with a much worse outcome. Now. Yeah, that car is not steering quite straight. I don't think he's not come in. Interestingly,
no, it's going on, but he's down in P6.
That car's not steering straight in the slightest. So how on earth is he? Why is he choosing to go down? There he goes again. So Isaac Gillison has dropped a rare mistake from the Dutch. It's got to be. That's got to be the end of that. So Isaac Gillison from hero to zero in a matter of a couple of corners. There, look at that. His car nowhere near straight. Why on earth didn't he bring it in? Unless he, for whatever reason, was too focused on it. Then the car just lets go and he realizes enough's enough. Our 3rd retirement of the night, our 2nd hypercar is gone. Isaac Gillison is out.
And well, I think I can broadcast my point even more, as of course Geitz and Priest. That was a view of him. Yeah, I mean that car's not turning, is it? Well, it is, but too much through Abbey and into Farm. But you look at the gap now between obviously Geitz and Priest. It's what, half a second, but then it's 10 seconds back to Erchan. It's 17 seconds back to P4. So I want to elevate my point again. I think it's a bit of a failure if these two Peugeots don't finish in both of them on the podium. I think a 1-2 is an expectation here, given the pace they've got and the advantage that they've got now with no threat from Isaac Gillison behind, which I think was probably their only threat all race long. Of course, Yamada went off. As soon as he went off, he's not in that battle. So it's now just down to these two managing their race and probably not getting a GT3.
I think that was Ed Hunter that accidentally did an auto-correct there without checking his message. Priest held up by Hannah at Arties, which should have been entry. We've all done it. We have all done it. I know I have. As we now look at the Italian combination are Marco De Bono and Dario Yemolo. Dario gets the inside line, coming through the loop. I don't think Marco De Bono really thought, oh, me, little faith. He's just done the switchback, almost coming together as they come to Aintree, and they have come together on the Wellington Straight. So that is going to give the inside. Wow. So Marco De Bono, he had the inside line, but as that tiny bit of impact just denied him the momentum, as we now see our lead Peugeots into the pits.
They're in early out of everybody in this race. So both of our leaders in the pit lane. Ercan continues on. I imagine everybody else continues on. Looking at battery-wise, or energy, it was 24% there for Johannes Priest before he headed in. 27% for Brandon Geitz. Looking all around Europe, yeah, it's very similar. 26, 27, 28. So I think the only one really was Johannes Priest there, who was below 25%. So burning a little bit more than the others, as we do see as well. Simončić and Gilhund, they've also got 25%. So I'd imagine they'll be in. No, they haven't got to go in there. They've just got to, you know, go a little bit earlier than others at that maximum stint length of the first stint. So out of the pits goes Geitz and Priest, but I'd imagine now they'll more than comfortably go to the end of this race.
Yeah, Ed Hunter actually points out a very good point, which I hadn't taken into consideration. Of course, I was commenting on why didn't Isaac come into the pit? That was the wrong pit. That was the GP pit lane. Of course, they're using the endurance one, which is the other side of the circuit. No, the thing is, I'm so used to that being the pit lane. Of course, that's not the one they're using for this race. So my apologies. Thank you very much, Ed Hunter, for pointing that one out. As we come back to Fabio Grigoletto, now up into fourth, fending off the advances of the Peugeot of Jimmy Menard. So yeah, there was a good breakdown of the time aspect. If any driver is changing tyres, it's about 5 seconds for 2 tyres, 12 seconds for 4. So anyone that can skip a tyre change will gain quite a chunk of time. That is something to bear in mind. Arda Ercan now takes over the lead, as Dario Yemolo, from being last, is now up to second into the pits. That is Jimmy Menard that is bringing the Peugeot in. So yeah, people kind of getting to around about 25 to 20% of their virtual energy left. That is when they're coming in. That is Jimmy Menard that is coming into the pits now. So pit stops being done. Let's see how the fields shake up.
Indeed, this could get interesting. To see what happens in terms of battery. We'll see once they cross the line. The two Peugeots, we'll see whereabouts they are with battery. But I'd imagine they've gone full to the brim. Near enough 100% on the battery. As Marius Pedersen has also just exited the pit lane. Menard's now exiting the pits as Matthias Leitau's in, and I think Alexander going ahead. So Alexander Hanna's got the jump over Marius Pedersen. So a nice move for Hanna. And then here is Brandon Geitz and Johannes Priest. That gap's gone up to 1.5 seconds now between these two. So I'd imagine at some point Brandon Geitz will just slow down slightly and allow Priest back within, half a second to 0.6, and they can just pull each other along as per usual, like they were doing earlier on. And then I'd imagine we'll see more people into the pit soon. And yes, the previous top two are now on 90% battery or energy. Is it battery or energy? Would you be energy, wouldn't it, not battery?
I think we all know what you're referring to. So, virtual energy, to call it, it's correct. It's correct name. So yeah, thank you very much, production, for pointing that one out. As we look at Michi Hoyer in the Falcon Alpine chasing Leonardo Pisoni for what is currently 7th position. As we've said, plenty of pit stops to go through. Not many coming through the pits yet, but there will be a big flurry of pits. Right on cue, Michi Hoyer dives into the pit. Now, I can say from personal experience, that pit lane's a lot longer than you think it is. I made one occasion, I commentated at Silverstone, I made the fatal mistake of looking at the bit of the pit lane you can see, forgetting it bends around the corner, and thinking, where are those cars going? And then I walk up the other end of the pit lane thinking, oh, there's actually a lot more of the pit lane than I've been paying attention to. So it's a big old pit lane at Silverstone. As we look at our GT3 leader, we haven't really seen an awful lot of Luke Whitehead since he took over the lead. This is has kept a constant and persistent pace up front, as Jenny Simoncic has also joined Mitty Hoyer in the pit lane.
Indeed, and with Whitehead being in P1 and Heron being down in P3, gap in the championship would go down to 6 points between the two in Heron's favour. No, that's assuming these two would finish first and third. I don't see why they wouldn't at the moment. They're very comfortable in their positions up in the top three. But yes, of course, anything can happen, I suppose, and we'll have to keep an eye on it. But at the moment, yes, it's very helpful for Luke Whitehead. Not good at all for Alexis Heron, because we have got a yellow flag. Somebody's gone off somewhere. I'm not sure who, not sure where. I'm sure we'll see in a moment. And there we are. It was Alexander Hanna in the Lexus that went off. And we'll have a quick look at the replay. Let's see what happens here. So this will be down in towards Maggots and Beckett, I believe. Yes, I've got that right. Making his way through. Now, was it contact with the hypercar? It was. Oh, I think it was a slide initially, and they kind of had the slide and snapped into the hypercar a bit.
There was Mathias Letal, that the Frenchman in the Cadillac, that was part of that particular tango. Let's look at it again. Look at Alexander Hanna. There is Letal. I think the Lexus was actually a little bit out of shape going into that part of Beckett, so if there was impact, I don't think it was the sole factor in that. But either way, that has dropped the Lexus down to 17th, and well, he's essentially last in that particular incident, as Bieler is now in the pits.
Matty Slater has made that work. He's only 8 seconds back from the two Peugeots. That was the gap that Arda Erchan had to the two Peugeots. So that has worked out really well for the Cadillac of Matej Leitao, who's got about a half a second over Jimmy Menard. Then, of course, behind him, it's Jurne Simoncic by a second. I'm not saying that, you know, that the two Peugeots have made a mistake here, because they've got so much, you know, clean air, and they've got such a gap. But pitting early has probably lost them a slight bit of time. It's nothing to worry about. But yeah, they've now got within 10 seconds Mathias Leitao. The question will be, is Arda Erchan going to ever gain in on these two when he goes into the pits? We'll have to wait and see, because if Mathias Leitao can gain time, I'd imagine Arda Erchan can do as well. As here is Leitao and Menard heading their way down towards Vale and Club. Let's see if there's any move on the cars this time around. No, there certainly isn't. And these two as well, I believe, are still the only cars that have got a medium and a hard on the car, and then together battling on track.
Also worth noting that Jimmy Menard has got the fastest lap in the race, so on 43.197. Not entirely certain when he did that, but he's had that mixed tyre strategy. He's not one of those on a complete medium setup. So as you can see from the tyre overlay, it is hards on the assuming I'm reading that right, the hards on the left hand side of the car and medium on the right, which is the reverse, ironically, of the car that he's chasing.
Yep, Bessier's in as well from second. Marin Bessier's in the pit lane, so we'll see what he does. And I know the reason now why the two Peugeots have lost a little bit more time to Leitao and those behind, because they obviously put more energy in. They went up to 95%, the others have only gone up just to above 80. Makes a bit of sense, as Matis Barzink is in the pit lane from 11% of back energy. He's going in and will re-emerge, I'd imagine, probably in around P15. As here is Leitao and Menard once again heading through Cox Corner. And Marin Bessier now exits the pit lane, should be comfortably ahead of Marius Pedersen will be. So Will is technically the net leader now, because of course everybody else ahead of him cannot go to the end with 20% of battery remaining. And Matthias Barzink rejoins ahead of Paul Puot. So in 15th for Barzink, 16th for Paul Puot. And you know what, as well, you've got to say hats off to Puot, because if I was staying in peace at 16, I was like 40 points back off the top 10. You would not see me driving around on track with 40 minutes to go.
No, fair point, well made. As we look at...
And I've got
so that's Jurne Simoncic in the Aston that has called the back of the dueling pair ahead of Menard and Leitao. So Jimmy Menard leads that particular. So this is for the last championship point available in this race. So these a scrap that that is kind of worth having in its full extent. It's interesting. The Aston is really showing some pace now, and there is Jurne Simoncic. So he's on mediums all round, with the two ahead of him are on mixed tyre strategies. And does look like Leitao can't now was struggling to hold on to the pace of Jimmy Menard ahead. Again, that would kind of further highlight why Jimmy Menard's got the fastest lap of the race. I'd say the top 7, I think it is, have yet to see the pit lane. Yes, it is the top 7 yet to see the pit lane. They are running their tanks very low. They are not allowed, as a reminder, they're not allowed to run their virtual energy down to 0. It is a very, very heavy penalty if they do that. So, ironically, Arda Ercan, our racing that actually has the most amount of energy, okay, of our top 7. Okay, it's only by 2%. It is on 11 last time they crossed the line. So, yeah, I will be expecting the top 7 in very, very short.
Indeed. As, of course, Erdkan has got, 5% more than Gilhard and Pisoni. So I suppose you've got that advantage. You've got a little bit more energy, can go a little bit longer, maybe a lap or 2 longer than the others. And we'll, see if that can gain him any time being in the pits for a shorter amount of time. As here's Paul Malgera once again back into P8 and P9 and P10 as they head their way down towards turn number... No, not turn number, because we're at the, Vale. I want to say turn number. I'm thinking of turn 18 and 19 in F1. It's like, what would it be, like turn 10, maybe? I think turn 10 and 11 or something.
I don't think I've ever thought about Silverstone in turn number. Oops, that is a missed pit box there from Sven Gilhead. Happens to the best of us. There's the Falcon Alpine that is in, as we look at another one of the Falcon representatives of Christian Malgera, still staring at the back of that Lamborghini, as he has been pretty much all race long, trying to push further up into the top 10. So yeah, there are several people that are really rolling the dice as far as their virtual energy are concerned. I think the pit lane's going to get very busy very quickly, but the longer you leave it, the less time you're in the pit lane. So there's definitely benefit to be had as our Peugeot pair come through to 7th and 8th. We'll see if their early pit stop's going to pay off for them, or whether the overcut is the way to go.
Keep an eye on this one as many cars re-emerge. Where Sven Gilhard is emerging onto track because they all make their way through, and Gilhard drops himself into that little train of cars in P10. Of course, behind him is Mathis Leite, but Gilhard's got to warm up those tyres, and that will definitely cost him time on this initial opening lap as they head their way down towards Stowe. Of course, ahead of him is going to be Jimmy Menard, and then ahead of him is 2 other Peugeots. It's Peugeot 1, 2, 3 at the moment in this race as Gilhard keeps Leite behind, and of course, from what we saw earlier between Gilhard and Menard, we know that he's got a lot of defensive ability, so we'll have to see what he can do with that during the course of this second stint. And we do see Yamullo and De Buono in the pit lane. Still carrying on his Arda Ercan with 4% left. I'd imagine he's got to be in next time around, as we also see Fabio Grigoletto in, and I'd imagine we see Pisoni and Ulrich in as well. And that would, of course, then put Keats and Priest even higher up to the front of the field again.
Also right down to 1% for Leonardo Pisoni, according to our information. Ulrich is also in. Arda Ercan is not. So Arda is going to have to be very careful in the Toyota. As I say, he did have that slight percentage advantage, which might be enough to buy him that extra lap. So let's see how the field shake out as that goes coming out of this. Dario Yamalo is coming out, I think, along with De Buono and Grigoletto. The Italians together once again, 2, 3, and 4. There is Geix. So the Peugeot pair coming in early has potentially cost them. And you were saying this earlier about how the pit stop strategy is going to play out, but that's Dario Yamalo from spin to second.
But he's still got a pit.
Well, granted, well, yeah, true. I thought Dario had been through with his fellow Italians. That was give him the moment, will you? Give him the moment. Oh, he has pitted. See, I was right. I was right. Thank you. Thank you.
Is he? Wait, is he actually?
Yes, he came through with. He came through with the Bruno and Grigoletto. Yes, he's been through.
Wait, is he in the lead?
It depends where Arda comes out. Now, this is the crucial one. It's where that Falcon Toyota comes out. Now, he's going to be in the pit lane slightly less time because he's made his virtual energy last that bit longer. So Oh, tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I really enjoyed that because the amount of times Nathan has corrected me in my time of commentating F1, it is, believe me, the balance is very much in his favour. Don't get me wrong. So that's why I enjoyed that.
Very stupid now because in my defence, it says 2%. That's in my defence.
I do grant you that. So here comes Arda Ercan. This is the pit stop we've been in. Where is Dario Yamalo? Where is he and the Peugeots? There is Dario. It's going to be close, but Arda Ercan, he's going to be out in the lead. And he's out, isn't he? It's Dario Yamalo.
Way ahead. Oh, my.
So, yeah, Arda Ercan is already coming through Magnus and Beckett. So that's actually really paid off for the Falcon Toyota. Arda Ercan. That's a stunning effort. He was second at Paul Ricard and could well have given him quite a big advantage with 28 minutes left on the clock and 10 seconds to Dario Yamalo. Now, we've seen how hard Dario can push. If he has had new tyres on that Ferrari, which I think he would have to have done, considering he would have burnt them down to absolute cinders in his charge in the field, then it's going to be interesting to see if Arda can hang on to that. But crucially, that has dropped. Look how far back that's dropped the Peugeots. They are, 13 and 15 seconds behind the lead that they held by quite a margin before they pitted.
Well, I thought they lost a bit of time. Didn't think they lost 15 seconds. I'd imagine that. See, going in just earlier isn't going to cost you that much time. So I'd imagine did they change tyres and the others didn't?
It's got to be something like that.
Got to be, hasn't it? Because you don't lose that much time out of nowhere. The two Peugeots were leading comfortably by 10 seconds to Arda Ercan. They're now over 10 seconds behind him. So we'll keep an eye on that battle and just see if there's anything that the Peugeots could do to get back on the podium. As here's going to be Thomas Schleiden and Manisha battling for P4 and P5. Of course, yes, they have got to pit, I'd imagine, because I can't see a pit thing on their screen as well.
A lot of the GT3s have still got to come in, yeah. So
I think the leaders haven't been in yet. So Whitehead, Herrant, and Hamadani say it. Of course, we did see who was it? Bessier came in really early, didn't he? So let's hope he hasn't made the mistake that the Peugeots did.
Well, unless he had damage from an incident that we didn't see. So, yeah, he may have been... Yeah, there you go. You just saw on the tower there. The Marin Bessier, he's the lead of the cars that have pitted. The top 9 have yet to see the pit lane in the GT3s. Potentially some outside of the top 10 as well. But we continue to watch what is currently the battle for P4. Technically P3. That's Hamadani in the Lamborghini, then Thomas Schleiden in the Merc, Artem Manisha in the Corvette, all to come into the pit lanes. There's a lot of talk in chat. I can see about who has skipped the pit strategy. Arda and Daria have skipped the tyre change apparently. So we'll see if the Peugeots are able to push through as we see the Corvette peel off from this particular battle. In comes Artem Manisha to serve his pit stop along with Whitehead, along with
Ercan!
Oh, from the lead! Oh no! For Arda Ercan, that's Magnus and Beckett again. I think it was Magnus and Beckett.
That's his Abbey, isn't it?
You might be right. If the replay sign here, it must have been Abbey then. So
no, it's not.
Oh, so he's gotten really out of shape then, and that's going to be hard into the wall. So as he's chasing the upright Mercedes, he's then just gotten completely unsighted. Oh, from the lead. Oh my! And there it is. That as he's jumped out of the turbulent air of the Merc, it's unsettled the. A potential win on the cars for Arda Ercan, and that is now retirement.
I mean, we lost Delors, who was in third on the start for GC3, Gillison, who was in third in the hypercar class, Ercan, who's been leading in the hypercar class. So now Dario Yamalo is in the lead again after what happened on the first lap. I did not expect to say that he would be leading on track, but look how close that Brandon Geitz is here. He could be looking to go for the move for the lead as well. He's caught up so quickly on the back of Dario Yamalo, as we can see there. Guys just going through one of the Lamborghinis. I think that might be Hamadani potentially making his way through. And then of course that'll be so that would have been Herrick, because that's Bessier as they make their way through in towards Vale and Club. This is going to be a right battle for the lead. Dario Yamalo and Brandon Geitz.
What's happened to Paul Puo? The Cadillac is in the garage, so an incident there for the Frenchman. That's again another victim of Silverstone. That's a great shame to see, but yeah, Brandon Geitz there with quite a sizable gap then from his 5 seconds between himself and Johannes Price. They've been glued together all race long, and now Brandon has really left his fellow teammate in the lurch. Well, in the lurch, in the dust, really, as they run past Luke Whitehead in the Mustang. Thomas Leiden from the lead of the GT3s is in. Oh, wow, that is deep for Brandon Geitz. There is the Mercedes of Thomas Leiden, which I think is probably a foregone conclusion that Luke Whitehead's going to take over the GT3 lead. Yep, there he comes past the Mercedes. Thomas Leiden now gets underway with Luke Whitehead. Should take over the lead. Won't go by a huge amount, but it will be significant enough for Luke Whitehead to retain the lead. And there is the Mercedes. So yes, that's Luke Whitehead back into the lead. A drive-through penalty from Thomas Leiden. I'm assuming that is speeding the pit lane because it's only disappeared. So, oh, goodness me.
I was going to say, he's in P2, but never mind, he's not going to be for much longer.
Well, technically he is, but a drive-through penalty for what I am assuming is speeding. No, he's out of virtual energy.
Oh, yes. Oh.
Well, unless he has sped in the pit lane, but I have just spotted that on our screen he is showing a 0%. But he was coming out of the pit lane when I saw that, so...
Interesting. He must have run out of it at the wrong time. He went down to 0%. Because here we go, 4 tenths now between the two leaders. Dario Yamolo and Brandon Geitz battling it out for the top spot. Peugeot versus Ferrari. Those two words don't go along very well, do they?
Not in many circles, no. There's not many occasions where you can say a Peugeot versus a Ferrari, but this is most certainly one of them. Peugeot, yeah, I mean the Peugeot has been very, very strong here in Silverstone. Whether that's whether that's how the track is, whether how the drivers have changed anything from Paul Ricard, or whether the latest tyre physics have changed. Whatever, but Dario Yamolo is going to have to either defend for his life for 21.5 minutes, or he will have to. It depends. Dario may simply say, "You are cooking the meat. I'm not going to cost ourselves time."
Yeah.
But come on, you're a racing driver. You're in the lead. I think it's fair to say he will want to defend that as much as he can. But if he did skip the tyre change, I don't think he's going to have the ability to hang. Well, he has the ability as far as his driving is concerned. Won't have the tyre life to do it. But again, Brandon Geitz may just bide his time, may stay there, try and force them. But never mind. He's barreled through on the inside of the stone. There was a big twitch there from Darius. I think he just did not have the tyres. He pushed so hard in that recovery drive from that spin early on that he has ridiculous the lead. We'll see if he loses any other positions as a result of having quite dead tyres.
Would there be any opportunity for Brandon Geitz to back up Yamolo into Price maybe?
He would be flirting with the rule book if he did that.
Oh,
it's not allowed in this series to team tactics as such.
In other words, carry on.
Yeah, yes, it is now run for Brendan Geitz. But again, as we've seen from very heavy hitters, Isaac Gillis and Arnaud Ercan to Remy Delors, Marco Cantor, they're very, very, very good drivers, and one mistake has chucked them all into the wall. So you got to think that we've lost our top two. Isaac Gillis and Arnaud Ercan were first and second in Paul Ricard, and they're both out. So that goes to show just how hard these cars are to drive, and one mistake can still happen.
Definitely. I mean, looking through at the points at the moment of who's where, of course, Grugoletto, our championship leader, by 14 points, is P5. He's ahead of Gilhurst by a couple of positions. He's obviously ahead of Gilhurst because he's out. The Bono's one place ahead of him. So he'll still have like a 15-point advantage heading out of this one, which is crazy, considering he's down in 5th and he started in 13th, because that's going to be a move made around the outside for one of our hypercars just going through. And of course, Thomas Leiden serving that drive-through penalty. Not good at all for him. He was up in second after the pit stop, but he's done something naughty, and he's got to go all the way through the pit lane, go back out the other side, and see what happens from there. He'll be out of the top 10 comfortably here, unfortunately. I'd imagine, at least anyway, for Thomas Lydon. Of course, it now brings our top 3 to being Luke Whitehead, Marilyn Bessier, and Alexis Heron. And then in the hypercar category, of course, it's Brandon Geitz ahead of Dario Imolo and Johannes Priest in 3rd. That gap between Imolo and Priest is 4 seconds. That could definitely come down to less than a second by the time we get towards the checkered flag. So we'll be keeping an eye on the potential battle for 2nd place. Of course, as the race goes on, the more the more that Dario's tyres will drop off. So we'll keep an eye on that battle for 2nd. And then also we got Ulrich on the back of Pisoni for P10. Didn't think I'd be seeing Ulrich up in the top 10, up battling for the top 10, considering he's been in like 14th and 15th for the majority of the race. So we'll see what he can do in terms of trying to get some points. And then, of course, this battle again between these two, Porto and Malgera. But looking ahead, Chris, we've got a battle for 3rd between Heron and Manisha.
That we very much have. I'm looking at the lap times as well that are coming up on the tower. Johannes Price was closing in on Dario Imolo by around about 6/10 a lap if they continue the current pace. As this fantastic battle between Alexis Heron, our GT3 Championship leader, and Arsene Manisha using the Corvette. Now that has not been a popular choice in the last few seasons. As the Corvette, and Arsene Manisha yet to get off the board as far as points are concerned, and he's looking at a really strong position. Has actually had a pretty good run, but nowhere to use the momentum coming through Brooklands. You see the Corvette, he's really been disrupted by the Bessier coming off the back of the Lamborghini. Also, he can't relax too much as Hamadani in the Lamborghini is not far behind, along with Alexander Lay in the offline Mercedes. So one mistake is very, very costly, as somewhat Thomas Lydon has proven. Now, that's such a shame for Thomas Lydon. He could make the argument that if the drive-through penalty was caused by the fact that he ran his virtual energy down to 0, he could argue that penalty was triggered after he had pitted, and therefore after it was Manisha in a very wiggly Corvette. Has a look on the inside of maggots there. But the thing is, the rules are very clear. If you run your tank down to 0, it is a penalty. And that update happens once the car crosses the start-finish line. If you register 0 before that, it is a penalty. And it's a drive-through penalty. It cannot be appealed. You have to serve it. So otherwise, the game will disqualify you from the race. So it's very sad for Thomas Lydon, but the rules are the rules.
Indeed they are. So he's got to just try and do what he can from P10 here. Might be able to get P9 ahead of Valentin Barrier, who I think from the back of the field has done a great job to get into the top 10. But yeah, we'll see what Lydon can do there. We're looking further ahead though. That gap between Imolo and Priest came down by a second in 3 minutes. I said at 18 minutes, the gap's 4 seconds. It's now 2.7 with 15 to go. So there is definitely an opportunity for Johannes Priest to battle for 2nd place. Of course, as I said, first 2 rounds, 9th and 9th. Now he's looking for 3rd. Well, he's in 3rd now, but looking for 2nd. So we'll see what Priest can do there. Of course, looking further behind, there's no real battles going on track in the hypercar category. So it's now, I think, until the checkered flag, really looking to focus on what's going on here in the GT3 category. Of course, with the struggling Lamborghini of Alexis Heron has brought Manisha, Hamadani and Alexandre Lay in as well. So we have a 4-way battle for the final place on the podium.
Very true. Sorry, my microphone wasn't unmuting then. My microphone's now trying to shut me up as well. Now, production has just reminded me the penalty for running out of virtual energy is actually 100-second stop-go penalty. So the drive-through is actually speeding in the pit lane. That's even less appealable. That is all down to the right foot of the driver. But yeah, brilliant effort here from us.
Some information as well from Mr. Prendergast, who I know in one of the other leagues. He said that Lydon sped in the pit lane, nothing to do with virtual energy. He was okay on that. So whatever we saw on our screen must have been wrong. But then again, of course, we are using a new system, so there's a reason why it could be. Is that's a move for 3rd, and Manisha has got onto the podium.
Great effort there around the outside of Stowe. But now has to defend for nearly quarter of an hour against 4. Well, there is the McLaren is closing in. That's Ramone. That's Axel Ramone. It is slowly closing in on this group. So it could be a 5-car conga line that now is being held by Arsene Manisha. Look at this. What a brilliant effort by the Corvette. Say that our only Chevy out there and is hanging on brilliantly to what is now a potential podium. The Belarusian driver representing Virtual was 6th in the goal split in the same car and is now hanging on to a platinum split podium. Fantastic effort, and is defending from the current GT3 Championship leader of Alexis Heron, who has seen 2 podiums out of 2 races so far this season. So excellent effort from Manisha. Still got some way to go, but is already starting to get some breathing space between himself and the chasing Lamborghini.
Not sure if it was a mistake or if Brandon got held up by some traffic, but that gap then for a moment went down to 1 second. It was up to 2.5, so I think there a bit of traffic in the way for our hypercar leader, and of course I think so because now Yamalo's lost time and Johannes Priest has gained in, so I think there's a bit of traffic bothering our top 3 at the moment. Johannes Priest now within a second, near enough, 1.1 seconds from Dario Yamalo, as yet again battle for 3rd, and through goes Herons once again. Alexis Herons into 3rd, and move for 4th potentially as well from Hamadani. He goes through as well, and in 3rd a moment ago was Manisha, and now down to P5, and I think got caught a little bit napping there, as also we can see Alexandre Lay looking for the move too. He sits in P6 now, looking for that move to jump up into the top 5, and how quickly you can fall here from 6th up to 5th. Let's see what happened here with Manisha in that Corvette up towards Copse Corner. Now, was it a mistake? Because it just looked like Heron went straight through ahead of the Corvette. So through there they go. It goes a tad wide, rejoins. Heron goes through, and he actually brakes, and then Hamadani says, well, I'll go through as well.
Yeah, I think I think he'd gone a little bit too deep into Copse, realised it, so that's what the brake was for. He didn't want to go side by side with the first of the Lamborghinis, and Hamadani just was right place, right time there. So yeah, very opportunistic, but came off well for Mario Hamadani, and we'll see if Arsene Manisha is able to respond to that with Alexandre Lay right behind. Oh, and we have our race leader, Brandon Guys, now coming in, catching this start, and now Johannes Price. It's right on the gate of Dario Yamalo. There is the Italian with the second Peugeot chasing hard behind. So our hypercars are still very close together, and now Price has stayed behind the T3. I think he's just being very cautious. His tyres may not be too healthy. Dario Yamalo is doing everything he can to try and stay with Brandon Guides. So has the Peugeot now started to burn its tyres? I think I was going to say, bearing in mind that Yamalo was on mixed tyres, he on hard tyres. He wasn't. It was Gillison that was on hard tyres. I beg your pardon. So yeah, I think Yamalo's tyres are knackered. There you go. So it's actually, we do still have a few mixed tyre runners. Bieler, the only one sticking with hard tyres at this point. There's Alexandre Lay staring now at the back of that Chevrolet. Can Manisha get back into that rhythm, get back towards the top of that? Now, I know I've done it. You make an overtake, you're pleased with yourself, and then you bin it. Although, in fairness, he didn't bin it. He just had, it was a tiny mistake. It was a little bit too hot coming through Copse. And so that lack of momentum, because the Lamborghinis were so close, was just very, very costly. So, yeah, a bit of a shame there for Arsene Manisha.
Well, Priest is right on the back. We've missed a replay, but Priest is right on the back of Dario Yamalo, as this is what happened with Manisha again, down in towards Copse Corner. They head through, went wide here. You can see
there it is.
Yeah, lost the car, snapped. And you can see dabbles on the brakes quickly. That allows Heron through, and then, of course, Hamadani, out of nowhere, popped through as well into 4th place. And there we go. Up another place for him. And then let's go back to the battle for 2nd place between Dario Yamalo and Johannes Priest. It's 6/10 as they head their way out of the loop and entry and down towards Brooklands Corner once again. I think the battle for the lead is gone. Gates is absolutely flew off, so now it's between Yamalo and Priest for 2nd place. And I'd imagine with better tyres and also a little bit more energy here, this is probably a better situation for Johannes Priest to be behind and to be the chaser rather than the one being chased, as now that gap, Chris, comes down to 2.5 tenths.
That it does. Johannes Priest then, the German driver, chasing Dario Yamalo. the Italian. Can the Ferrari, or has the Ferrari got anything left? He's got a little bit less virtual energy in the tank, but with only 9 minutes to go, I don't think that's going to be a factor as far as running out is concerned. But either way, we know how hard Dario has been pushing all race long, and it's fairly indicative that he's going to be struggling in these last few laps. But has Johannes Price, who, I say, has dropped off that absolutely dominating early pace that we saw from our Peugeots, so he could well have burned the best out of his tyres as well. So it could be a bit of a kind of a last-minute dive effort. There's only a few laps left. Bear in mind, then only 2-minute laps nearly, and we only have 8.5 of those left, 8.5 minutes left. So there's not a lot of time to get these positions done. So Dario could well defend for that second place. This is going to be fascinating to see.
This definitely will be, and I think with 8 minutes now, he's kept him behind for so long. He knows that with a bit more defensive work here, that P2 is definitely in the books for him, considering on lap 1 he took the lead, span off, dropped down to 15th, I think it was, and then has slowly made his way through. And of course, as we knew earlier on, he was going to be quick in this race. That Ferrari, is probably the quickest car, I think, on pace at the moment after the new tyre model. So we all expected him to have pace. I didn't think we'd see him back up in P2 at the end of this one. I really didn't. So a great job by Dario if he finishes second or third, because I think we'd even be congratulating him if he got 5th or 6th. So he knows he's overdone what he could have done in that Ferrari. As here we are, Johannes Priest is closest, and he has been all race long to go for second place here. As we head through Cops Corner, back down towards Maggots and Beckett's, and if he can get a good line here, get a good run out of Chapel, there's a big chance he can go for second place heading into Stowe Corner. So it's, of course, left-right, then another right-left through there, and then, of course, a good exit here. Prepares yourself for a good launch down towards Stowe Corner. The gap is 0.2 of a second. Now, is this enough to make the move for second place for Johannes Priest? Dario goes to the inside. Priest moves to the outside line in towards Stowe Corner, all the way around the outside for the Peugeot. Can he get the move done? No! And Yumolo still keeps ahead as they head in towards Vale & Club. And now it's going to be a send by Priest, but has to back out. This one, Chris, is definitely going to go to the checkered flag.
I fully agree, and it's going to be a fantastic duel. We've also got those battles all over the place. There's Grigoletta and Jimmy Menard arguing for 5th position in the hypercars. We still have this group of our GT3s close together, of Alexis Heron that leads it, although he has broken away a little bit. Now the Lamborghinis are starting to leave the Corvette and the Mercedes behind. Right behind them is Ramone, who I think is going to run out of time at that rate unless Manisha and Lay really hold themselves up. As one of our hypercars just kind of wrong place, wrong time there, but should get through fairly easily. Couldn't quite see who that was, but Corvette still leaves Mercedes just about. I feel a little bit for Artem Manisha. Did the good move to get up into third, but sadly that one tiny mistake has denied him. But there is Yumolo and Price still arguing for second with 5.5 minutes to go.
Oh, this could get interesting once again. If that gap's down to 0.2, you know for a fact that down towards Stowe, Johannes Priest has got the opportunity to go for a move again. Of course, Yumolo was clever to go to the inside and send Johannes Priest all the way around the outside. He couldn't quite hook it up then. Let's see if he can hook it up this time. The gap as they head out of Chapel is just over 0.2, so it might be a little bit too further back than it was last time out for Johannes Priest to go to the move in towards Stowe. They go, and you could just see there it was about, I'd say, half a tenth back from what he really needed there to go for the chance. But he's side by side down towards Vale & Club. On the outside is Priest looking to go for the move for second place. It's still side by side. Yumolo now on the outside line as they head in towards Vale & Club. Through Club Corner they go, and Johannes Priest has got the move good into second place, and Dario Yumolo down to third, and that was a move that was needed to happen for many, many laps for the Peugeot. And then we go back to this battle, Chris, here for P5 and P6. Grigoletta trying to hold on to that P5 spot.
It's Cadillac versus Peugeot, the third of our Peugeot hypercars, challenging the champion. Oh, that was a bit of a wiggle there on the exit of the Abbey for Grigoletta. But this is absolutely brilliant. We've had battles all race long throughout our field. This is what we love here in VMS. It's such a wonderful championship to be part of. But Dario Yumolo, I think he knew it when he was that tiny bit too deep coming through Stowe. And that was the only invitation that Hannes Priest needed to steal away that second position. Muller's not giving up on it, but that's going to be a very hard battle to try and overcome now as we continue to watch Arsene Venetia and Alexandre Lay fighting for 5th position. The Lamborghinis are probably a bit out of touch now, but right behind them is Axel Ramone. He's 1.3 seconds back. If these two come together, or if they really slow each other up, that McLaren could well get involved in this argument for 5th. It is absolutely fantastic to see. I wouldn't want to be Arsene Venetia, man. He must be sweating in the cockpit of the American machinery. But Alexandre Lay will see if he's able just to get that overlap, just to make that mistake, whatever he needs. But here comes Grigoletto and Menard once again on the Hanger Straight. Who's going to win out into Stowe? Is there going to be a move here from Jimmy Menard? I don't think he's going to be able to commit to it in the Peugeot. But it was on... Well, it was the inside line of Stowe that got it for Johannes Price. We'll see if Jimmy Menard... Oh, that's off for Grigoletto. Oh, it's a lag moment there.
Oh, that was...
Oh, don't do that to us, Fabio.
Both had the exact same reaction. They just shot off onto the grass a bit like what we saw with Remy Delorme.
That's Sven Gilhard. You can see the Falcon Alpine is not too far behind, but I think a little bit too far back to be in this battle as Menard gets a little bit of overspeed coming through farm, can't use it, tries to sweep through loop to then get the exit he needs through Aintree, but again he's just a couple of car lengths too far back. They've got a decent slipstream, but is it going to be for nothing? He's too far back, I think, this time to make an attack on Grigoletto, but there's still a lap or so to go.
Indeed, this could still get interesting. The battle for 5th continues on. Grigoletto and Menard. I think considering Grigoletto's finished 1st and 3rd in the first 2 rounds, 5th or 6th, he'll be annoyed. I don't think it bothers him that much. I think he's annoyed either way, as this is a battle for 9th place. It's Valentin Barriere versus Thomas Leiden for 9th in the GT3 category. 2 Mercedes battling it out for position. Of course, speeding in the pit lane is what has possibly cost Thomas Leiden a podium. He's up the inside in towards Valen Club. It's close stuff. It's rubbing through out to the final, well, normally the final corner, back down towards Abbey they go. And Leiden has got that move done, I'd imagine. He's got the inside line. He's like, what, half the wheel ahead as they head in towards Abbey corner. And I hate that, Chris, because I always go to say the final turn at Club. It's end of the second sector.
Yeah, I make that same mistake as well, as they're still very close together. Barrier's not giving up on this one, tries to get an outside manoeuvre coming through loop. He's going to be pushed a bit too wide before they get to Aintree. Valentin Barriere, he's not giving up on that one as well. And here comes Menard and Grigoletto again with Sven Gilhard with the greatest ringside seat in the entire race as they come through that same section. Jimmy Menard is doing everything he possibly can. He's got the mix of hard and mediums on his car, but he just has not been able to get any kind of overlap in the Peugeot on the Cadillac. He tries to get cut back into the inside line for loop, can't get it done. Less than a minute till the checker flag falls.
And I'd imagine now, once Brandon Geitz crosses the start-finish line, it will be the final lap of the race. There's 30 seconds to go, so he's not going to complete yet. You can see just cross the line with a 1:44.8, so this will now be, I believe, the final lap of the race.
You could well be right. Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Ed. 17 years of the GP layout has rewired our commentary brains. That is so very true. So very true. So that the checkered flag is going to be presented. We are on our final lap of the race. Menard and Grigoletto still glued together. There is Brandon Geitz. The checkered flag falls in five or so seconds. It's not going to be this start finish line that does it. So as he catches up to the Falcon McLaren that's Niclas Hubin, they are bouncing around. But Brandon Geitz, absolutely, you can't fault him. He's had that little bit of pace advantage over his teammate all race long, and he's going to sweep through Vale and side by side. Oh no! That tiny mistake from Menard as he was in the turbulent air of the Bessier, I think. And that has sent Grigoletto off. Oh, it was such a tiny mistake from Jimmy Menard. So let's see it again. So Menard behind Grigoletto gets the slipstream, goes to the inside line at Stowe, and then in the turbulent air of the Mustang ahead, gets that slight tank slapper and off goes Grigoletto. Oh dear. There's going to be words said about that, unfortunately, as the replay unloads itself back to live. Oh my goodness, as our race leader works his way through the GT3. So your winner here in Silverstone is Brandon Geitz in the Peugeot for Flybe Esports. The number 7 car takes the top spot. He's happy with that. His teammate Johannes Price follows him 7 seconds later. Dario Yamullo from last gets up into third in the Ferrari. Marco De Bueno in fourth. Sven Gilhead has gotten ahead of Jimmy Menard in all that. So the Falcon Alpine steals away fifth. Jimmy Menard sixth. Latau seventh. Grigoletto comes home in eighth in the end. Yene Simoncic in the Aston comes home in ninth. We do have a replay here, do we? So this is how Sven got past Jimmy Menard. That's quite a distance back. So Jimmy must have gone very wide at Stowe. No, that's not Stowe. That's Brooklands, beg your pardon. See, I'm doing now. He's pulled over. That looked like Jimmy Menard just let Sven Gilhead through there.
Wrong car, you didn't take him out.
But here's has Luke crossed the line yet? Yes, he has, I think. No, he's still going, I think. So Luke Whitehead he's going to be, let's face it, he's going to be our GT3 winner. Goodness me. There's going to be a few words said by several people. You can see how many GT3s are in the pits by how, giving an indication of how few of them were on the lead lap for our GT3 contingent. But here he comes through Woodcote for the final time. Your winner of the GT3 class is Luke Whitehead, and absolutely flawless from the lead for. That's how far back. That's about what 14 seconds looks like here at Silverstone for GT3, as Marin Bessier back on form in the Ford, and then Alexis Herod continues his run of podiums. He's stood on all 3 steps now, not necessarily in order. He's been second, first, and third thus far, and then chased home by fellow Lamborghini Maya Yamadani, and Artem Manisha is some distance back, I think, in the Corvette. Not sure where he is. The camera can't find him unless he's already crossed the line. He's showing us a lap down. So, oh my goodness me. So it is Brandon Geitz and Luke Whitehead, your class winners.
Yep, indeed. We'll have a little look through the results as well. So it was Geitz, Price, and Yamullo, the top 3. Then it was Marco De Bueno, a very good result, kind of just out of nowhere. Finishes in P4 in the BMW, ahead of Sven Gilhead. The top 5 is rounded off. Then we had Jimmy Menard in P6, ahead of Matthias Leitao. Fabio Grigoletto, final lap incident at Stowe corner cost him a top 5. It was Jene Simoncic in P9 and Leonardo Pisoni reigning off the top 10. Then we can see the rest off the grid. It was Ulrich in P11 ahead of Hoyer at 12th, Wheeler 13th, Barzenk 14th, and then we had some big losses in that one. The main 2 being Honor Urchan from the lead, from a 10-second lead, ended up in the barriers at, I think it was by Farm Curve, and then we also had Isaac Gillison as well, with a big mistake through Maggots and Beckett, which cost his race 2.
Oh, goodness me. Just about catching a breath now. Here's our GT3 results. Luke Whitehead, absolutely flawless victory for him in the Mustang. Marin Bessier takes second, Alexis Heron third, then Hamadani fourth, Manisha fifth, Lay in sixth, Rabanay seventh, Patrick Schindler eighth, Thomas Leiden ninth, and Niclas Hubin rounds out the top 10. Valentin Berrier in 11th, Christian Margera 12th, Portal 13th, Pedersen 14th, Hannah 15th, Lemoyne 16th, Hanno 17th, Remy Delorme at the tail of the field. I think Remy was our sole, he was our sole GT3 retirement. Such a shame for Remy Delorme. And we do indeed we already have someone wanting to come and have a chat to us. It is our GT3 leader. So let's grab into the box. Luke Whitehead. Luke, are you with us?
Hello. Yes, loud and clear. How's it going?
Well, in all fairness, you had very little airtime in that entire race other than right at the start. That that has to be said. That, from our perspective, was absolutely flawless.
Yeah, well, you pretty summed it up from my perspective as well, actually. But yeah, thank you very much, for that. But yeah, it was good. It was a good race. I was a little bit nervous, obviously, going to turn 1, because going outside at Cops is always a bit sketchy. But Heron was, fair enough. He was really fair to me. He could have probably gone in a bit deep and bodied me wide, and he didn't. And I saw like on the replay, he actually touched the brake mid corner to make sure he didn't run into me. So massive props to him for being very nice on that. He could have been a lot more mean. Then obviously we had one of the 499s rejoin onto the racing line on the exit of Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel, which I'm gonna be honest was a bit scary. A little bit scary, and to be honest, the hypercar stayed a bit scary the whole race. It was honestly not very pleasant. The standards were a little bit touch and go today, but obviously, yeah, as I say, we managed to get clear, made the pit stop, and after the pit stop, we came alive. But as the track got colder, it seemed that we just got quicker and quicker and quicker. The gap was only 5 seconds, I think, when we came out the pits, and then at the end, it was about 14 seconds. So it was a really successful second stint, and it kind of played into what I was thinking about our tyre wear. We prioritized tyre longevity, and it seemed that it was a lot better like at the end of the race than in the midpoint. And happy to see that was the case. And led home a pretty comfortable victory, which is much needed after last race, obviously.
Yes, I think it was fair to say you were somewhat outspoken when I think it's a polite way of putting it when.
Yes.
Things took place in Paul Ricard, but so two victories in the series. You're really chasing Alexis Heron hard in this one. I think that deficit is going to be coming down by 10 points. So how are you feeling about the Ford? I remember you saying you were quite confident with how the Ford's looking, and it would seem that after. The tyre model and whatever changes have happened, the Ford is still looking pretty good for you.
Yeah, it's lost a bit of its bite that it had before the patch, unfortunately. It's not quite as potent as it was on the previous tyre. Makes it definitely more benign and more manageable in the race, which obviously we saw today. Obviously comes at a cost of the front tyres kind of dying off, which we did kind of struggle with a little bit, which is why we decided to change the left side tyres in that pit stop, and I think Marin did the exact same. But yeah, I like the Ford. I like it. It's not the strongest car outright. I think if I was going to go the strongest car, I'd probably have chosen the Porsche or the Lexus. But the Ford is the car I like. I get on with it, and I think we're probably almost at the halfway point of the season, and obviously it should have probably been 3 wins, I'd argue. But obviously Paul Ricard didn't go away, so. We'll just keep going. We'll keep going. I think the Lambo seems pretty weak on race fuel as well, so that should play into our hands a little bit come the endurance race, obviously next round. So we'll see what happens.
So yeah, I mean that was going to be the next question. How are you feeling about the endurance race at Spa next time around?
Yeah, well, Spa's not a great track for me, truth be told, and the Ford is a bit of a tricky one there with the curbs and obviously the. Running quite low wing, it's quite an aero-intensive circuit, which the Ford doesn't tend to do particularly well on. Say that, Paul Ricard was great, and Hero's great as well. But we'll see. I haven't done any laps yet, and given that obviously Spa, is a pretty popular track, I think it's going to be a lot harder to rise above the rest. So we'll see how we get on, but I'll be fighting hard like I always do, and fingers crossed it goes our way.
Little else to do your sim racing. I think it's fair to say. After it's always a pleasure to commentate on you, Luke. You've been in the game a long time, and it's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to chat to you. Any questions, Nathan?
No questions from me for once. But Luke, congratulations on the win, mate. Well deserved as always.
Thank you very much. And I was going to sort of bounce back as well, Chris. It's always great to hear your voice as always as well. Well, I'd say that. One of the first races I did, actually, in sim racing was commentated by Chris. I remember it was a Donington Park race in ACC with, I believe, World Pro Racing. So that long ago. That's like 4
That's
years
some
ago.
years back, yeah.
That's almost 5 years ago. So, long time. But, good to see you back in it. And, hopefully I'll be back in the box, after Spa. So, we'll see how that goes.
You are far too kind. Always a pleasure, Luke. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
We will see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, Luke Whitehead.
Have a good one, guys. Take care.
Right, we have got some of our hypercars as well ready to have a chat to us. Let's have a chat with our second place finisher. That would be Johannes Price. Johannes, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm down. Hello.
Hello to you, good sir. Right, Nathan, take it away.
Indeed. Well, Johannes, welcome in. Of course, a really good race today. P2 And of course, Brandon in P1 as well. So I suppose teamwork, well, team, great job to finish P1 and P2 in that one. Of course, the Peugeot, heading into this, I didn't think it would be the quickest car. From all I knew, that the Ferrari was the best, and no other cars were quite in touch with the Ferrari. But the Peugeot today seemed to be the best car.
Yeah, it was fantastic to drive it. It was quite stable at rear, and we had quite a bit of luck because both Ferraris spin, one in lap 1 and the other one mid race as well. So Ferraris were gone, and that's how we ended P1 and 2 at the end.
Yes, indeed. I mean, definitely a little bit of luck involved. But of course, in the pit stops, you and Brandon went in very early. Both, I presume, changed tyres, came back out, and ended up with a big job to do. Do you regret going in and changing tyres? Because obviously the cars around you opted not to.
I think it was the safer option for us because tires were really old and not good enough for the second stint. And if we didn't change tires, then it would be quite twitchy at the rear. So it was a safer thing for us. And at the end, it come back to us. So I think it was the right strategy for us.
Yes, definitely. And of course, in the first 2 races, it was P9 and P9. And now it's a P2. Of course, heading to Spa next time out in the endurance round. Any thoughts heading into that one?
Not really. I guess it's the tactic is don't spin, don't crash. It's a long race in Spa, so everything can happen.
Yes, definitely. Well, Johannes, congratulations on that podium. Well deserved, and hopefully we'll see you again over the course of the season. So have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time, hopefully. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Johannes Price. Second place in our hypercar class. So it's only fitting that we have a chance to our top finisher in the hypercars, Brandon Gates. Brandon, are you with us?
Hello, hello.
Wow, that was absolutely cracking, but it wasn't all straightforward. You and Johannes ran off into the distance. You had a brief, but it was quite an interesting duel between you for a little while, and then it looked like you were unstoppable for a while. When you pitted quite early compared to the rest of the field. Did that worry you at all that the pit stop wouldn't quite go your way?
Yeah, well, I think we did a little bit of wrong calculation in the pit stops, like 5 or 6% too much of virtual energy and fuel. But the strategy was much more the safe one than Dario or others went. We changed both left tires to have a safe race to the end. The others struggled a lot, and yeah, as we saw, a lot of them spun.
Yeah, it was quite a few interesting moments across the board, but I gotta say that in the gold split last season, Spa was a little bit less kind to you than it was this time. I think it's fair to say you coming home in 8th, but you were 4th in the gold split last season, and you've absolutely nailed it in the Peugeot in this race. Already this has been a bit of a mixed season for you. Do you think that the Peugeot is now following the time model update? Do you think the Peugeot is really going to start to climb up the ladder, or is it still going to be quite a fight with the Ferraris?
Yeah, we gambled. We gambled a little bit before the season to change to the Peugeot. The initial plan was to go to the Cadillac, but yeah, sometimes BOP goes this way and sometimes this way, and at the moment it's on our side. The Ferrari is a little bit ahead on most of the tracks, but yeah, let's see.
Excellent stuff. So with the endurance race at Spa coming up, how are you confident that again the Peugeot can do well?
Yes, of course, but I'm not confident in me. With weather chaos coming in, I'm really excited. Anyway.
That's good stuff. We very much look forward to it. Any questions, Nathan?
No questions from me again? No. But Brandon, great job on the win, and hopefully we'll see you keep up that form over the rest of the season.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice week. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Brandon, guys. And that is going to sum it up. We are up against the clock, so we will have to tie it up here for now. Apologies, Matthias Barzank wanted to have a chat to us. Sadly, we are out of time here. But thank you very much to those that have been with us, either live or post-event. Your presence is always welcome here at VMS. Thank you very much, Nathan Richards, for joining me in the box. It is always a pleasure to have your dulcet tones with me once again.
Indeed, Chris. Great to be alongside you, as always. And of course, I'm not here for the next round. I believe I'll be here for the round after. So you'll see me again at Sebring. That'll be fun.
Oh, Sebring in these low-slung hypercars. That's going to be something to see. But next time out for Platinum, it is the endurance round at Spa, which would have been this week. But as mentioned earlier, we swapped the Silverstone race and Spa race due to the endurance race hosted by LMU themselves. Thank you very much, Nick Domino, for being in charge of the cameras. It is always a pleasure to work with you, good sir. Plenty of racing in between our Spa race and now, so we hope to see you there. Until next time, thank you very much, and good night!